feeling? How are you?
Welcome to Nested, an original podcast from the White Wren featuring intersected stories about love, life at home, and everything in between. Our mission is to inspire and encourage you in prioritizing tangible interactions that take place within the four walls of your family home. Each episode, we talk to interesting people who have a heart for making time for the things that matter most in life. Let's dive into this episode.
We'll find our way back home. We'll find our way back home. No, we'll never have to walk alone. We'll find our way back.
For this episode, Brent Deitrich, publisher at the White Wren, sits down to chat with Sarena Oudthone of Nouvel Photo and Film.
It's good to chat with you. Glad that we could get on and do this, and I'm excited to learn more about you and your business and everything. I know that we've chatted a little bit just by email, and then I see things that you post in the various Facebook groups. So I think this will be fun to just have a little deep dive together and have you on the podcast today.
Thank you. I'm excited.
All right. So just kind of in a nutshell, give me your little 30-second networking spiel, like who you are, what you do, that sort of thing.
All right. Well, my name is Sarena, and my husband and I, we have a photo and video business called Nouvel. There's a story behind the name Nouvel. I've actually done weddings and family photography since straight out of high school since 2006. But we started Nouvel in 2022, and we do that full time, and it's pretty great.
Nice. Do you want to dive into the name and the story behind that now?
Yeah. There's like a whole backstory to it, but so before we started Nouvel, I had a different job. He had a different job. I did photos on the side, but at that time in our lives, like I guess as a couple and as individuals, we were, I was pregnant with, or maybe we had just had our daughter, and we had just bought a house and we were planning our wedding. And so there was a lot of new stuff going on. And my husband, Jonathan, if I say Jonathan or Panda, those are interchangeable. Panda is Jonathan. Jonathan is Panda.
Okay.
Panda, that's what I call him.
Sounds like there's a story behind that too.
It's a nickname he's had since like junior high. So
Okay.
that's what everyone knows him by. So Panda was wanting to retire from esports. He worked in esports, and he was like, what if you quit your job so that you can be home with our daughter more, and we go full time with like weddings? And I was like, that's a terrible idea. Because I was really comfortable with my job, and I really like doing weddings on the side, and the idea of doing it full time and only doing that was really scary to me. But he is, he's a business genius, and honestly, anything he touches turns to gold. So Nouvel, when I finally came around to the idea of going forward with, doing this full time, because it was a really big leap for me, for both of us. We wanted a name that just represented like new. And I had this idea of, I was like, I really like documenting life. And so what if we do something that's kind of like a book, because you have all these chapters to your life. And I was like, it's a little cliche. Yeah. I was like, but really, that's what life is like. And so we were looking at like novel. Then I looked it up, and apparently there are like 1,000 other people that had that idea. And then he came across the word nouvelle, and it was like, it's like a Latin and a French word, and it represents novel, but also represents new. And he was like, well, this is a new business. We have like a new start. We're getting married. We just had a baby. We bought a house. It's a new business.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where Nouvel came from.
That's
And
so cool.
yeah, when he pitched that to me, I was like, yes, let's do it. Love it.
That's awesome. So that was in '06, you said?
No, that
Or
was
'06 was
so
when you
I've
Okay.
yeah, that was when we did all that's when we started Nouvel, which was actually January 2022. So 2 years
Oh,
ago.
okay. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah,
What
so
were
we're
you
like
doing? What were you
before
doing
then.
before that? Yeah, yeah.
So before that, I worked in marketing at a university here in Arkansas called UCA. It's University of Central Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
I worked in the outreach department. So we did a lot of like community outreach.
Mm-hmm.
And I was there. I told everyone, I was like, I'm like arts and crafts and marketing. You know, they need photos, I do it. They need something designed, I do it.
Yeah.
I love that job. You know, when you work with people that do community outreach, it's, you know, you're going to work with good people because
Mm-hmm.
they all have like really big hearts. And Panda worked in esports. He was the president of the, he's going to kill me for like freezing on this, the esports stadium in Arlington.
Okay. Okay. Nice.
And, you
So
know,
that.
he did a lot of camera work at his job as well because before he was like the president, he did like broadcast like productions and esports. So he knew his way around a camera, but
Mm-hmm.
he wasn't, you know, he wasn't like a big wedding guy. So when he was like, you could do photo and I could do video, I was like, this is going to be insane. This is going to be messy, but it's actually been really, really great.
So
So
does he still work too, or this is your both of yours full time thing now?
this is both of us full time. Um,
Okay. Okay. Cool.
we try to do honestly every family shoot I book or every wedding we book. You know, we really try to push to do both photo and video. We
Mm-hmm.
try to sell that to them just because I think both invoke different feelings and emotions. You know, I'm like, photos are one thing, but like video is like just reliving it, hearing your voice. It's kind of like a little portal to that time in your
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
But we do a lot of shoots separately as well.
Okay. How do you like I mean, I feel like people are used to like the idea of like video for a wedding and stuff like that. Like how do you pitch that to like somebody as like this is something like do you pitch it as like an art piece? Do you pitch it as like this is like archival for your family? Like this is like family memories? Like how do you pitch the video side to family?
Well, honestly, the great thing is, you know, like any other vendor in the wedding industry, like we have our contact form. Someone reaches out to us and they tell us what they're wanting. And
Mm-hmm.
we've been really lucky that most people that come to us want photo and video. And I think Panda's videos like really stand out. You know, he's that kind of person that when he sees something and he, you know, he was like, I want to be a really good filmmaker. So he went after it and that's what he's good at. So I think his work really stands out. But um, to the people that do reach out and they're like, I think I just want photo. I don't know about the whole video thing. I usually pitch it as, you know, we want to tell your love story. Like, you know, our films aren't necessarily centered around your wedding day, even though it is your wedding film, but it's centered around your love story. Um,
Yeah.
and a big part of our process is like when we do, you know, we do the complimentary engagement session. And that's not just to sell our work to the person, but to get to know that couple. Cause I think shooting a wedding or shooting a family session, anything, it's like someone's really inviting you into their personal space.
Mm-hmm.
So we really want to get to know those people and like
Yeah.
tell their story. So I guess that's how we pitch it is, we want to tell your story. And I think there's a big difference in photography and videography, and they both bring something really special to the table.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I was talking about this with somebody the other day, and I kind of want to, since we're talking about like families and family videos and stuff, and we're trying to focus on this a lot more in the White Wren. We started out as like just a wedding publication, and now we're kind of growing to like your family and all the things that you do inside of your home together. Um, and I was thinking about back in the day when I grew up. There was always somebody in the family. There was always that one person, that one uncle or something that was like walking around with a camcorder on their shoulder all the time, right? And it was like, and I don't know, maybe I'm dating myself here with the with the camcorder on the shoulder thing, but like, I feel like that was an interesting way to document life because it was sort of like a tape lasted like maybe a half a year, maybe a year, depending on how much you're recording. But then you had like this capsule of like memories from that year,
Right.
right? And now, like everything we record is so fragmented. It's just like pieces on our phones. Um, and so that I don't know. Like, do you feel like when you're kind of pitching that to them, you're like, do you feel like it's bringing like kind of that archival piece to them, like this is a family memory to be documented this way? Like,
Yeah.
how do you? I guess what I'm saying is like if somebody says to you, why would I want to do this over just recording like I have videos of my kids on my phone, right, or something like that, like what's the
Well,
what's the difference, you know what I mean?
I think a big difference is that someone puts together this really special short film for you versus all of
Hmm.
the little clips on your phone. And when people see themselves in these videos, they're always like, "Oh my gosh, I feel like I was watching a movie, but I was in it, and I saw my grandma." Or um, one good example is we did this. Well, I think I'd sent you photos from this session, but it was this multi-generational family, and the grandma was here from another country and didn't speak English. And so I don't remember which country, but when she flew in, they were like, we want to get all of the women together in our family and we want to do some photos. And then we talked about video, and we're like, there's a different, it's just different. And when
Hmm.
you hear grandma's voice in this video and you see her, they cooked what are the empanadas
Hmm.
together, and I feel like I maybe butchered that, but they they spent all this time together doing what they've always done. And they talked to me, they were like, we've got videos of each other, but this just feels so different, because it's got the music and it's got the emotion, and anyone that watches this is like gonna get really emotional.
Hmm.
But if you watch just another like phone video, it's different.
Yeah.
um, so yeah, it's kind of like, if you watch a movie on a big screen, like they obviously, music invokes emotions, and so a movie is always going to be a lot different than, like, say a cell phone video, which I feel like that's like stating the obvious. But when it's seeing your loved one in that video, yeah, I did the same thing. Like when I was pregnant with our 2-year-old, her name's Olive, so I'll just call her Olive from now on. When I was pregnant with Olive, I took photos of myself every month, but I never actually scheduled like a maternity session because I was like, well, I'm taking all of these self portraits.
Hmm.
I was like, but what if we did like a video? And I've never been like a big crier. I am now. After I had her, I cry at everything. Um, but I was like, what if we did a video? So a friend of ours who does like wedding films, he came and he did like a home video, and we have a really big blended family. And so my stepdaughters, they're six, they're twins. They were here and they were like loving on me and loving on my belly. And when we got that video back, I was just like
Yeah.
sobbing, and all of the kids are watching me watch the film and they're like, why are you crying? I was like, just
Yeah, I think it stands to reason that I mean, it sounds like something that we put more effort into creating or archiving also is going to hold more meaning. Um, because it's kind of like, I mean, even with my scenario of like with the camcorder, like it took effort during that time to like get a camcorder out and record something. It wasn't just like you had a phone in your pocket and you just whipped it out and recorded things all the time. Like
yeah.
there had to be something substantial going on for you to just decide I'm going to record right now. And I think even for that process of like doing something like that, like a purposeful film celebrating a moment, or some memory for a family, like there's intentionality to it. There's, there's some effort put behind it. So it feels like it becomes more archival in that way.
Yeah.
Um,
It's funny
yeah.
that you bring up like Uncle Bob with the camcorder, because I've talked to Panda about these videos, and I'm like, while I love this big cinematic video of either a wedding or a family or whatever it is we're shooting, I was like, it would be nice if we could get like Uncle Bob's camcorder footage of like people talking to the camera and intertwine that just to have that element of, transporting through time and hearing what people had to say on that day. It's kind of like you see those phones at weddings or like at wedding receptions where people can leave a voice message.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah, yep,
the couples that do that, I'm like, it would be really cool to get their the audio from that and like intertwine that into it just to have that, feeling like you're there again, because
yeah, yeah,
that day is only going to happen once.
yeah. And I love that like kind of like off the cuff feeling, like unscripted, which I think is what a lot of people are gravitating towards now, because I think it just in the imperfection of it, it makes them feel something more than something that's like incredibly polished and like right, like even the way that we're doing this podcast, like I think that kind of conversation resonates with people more than something that sounds very scripted.
I've had
um
this theory, and I'm sure you'd probably agree, but I think honestly, after like COVID and the pandemic, people kind of view those things a lot differently, in my opinion, because, or maybe they like cherish those things more. So instead of, say, following like all of these artsy trends, people are kind of more tuned into the things that matter, which is like connection and like looking back on like the real moments versus like the really posed moments. Or maybe that could just be my thought process, like I'm living in a bubble. So like I do what I call like documentary photojournalistic style shooting, so maybe that's all I'm seeing on my feed.
yeah,
So in my head, that's what everyone's doing. But I do think that more people are doing that, and it's because it feels more important, or it's come to light how important it is, especially after we were all cooped up in our houses and scared for our lives for so long.
yeah. Well, I mean, I guess like in any kind of tragedy, trauma, um, anything like that, like it kind of makes people take pause. You kind of like evaluate like what are the important things in life to you. and like you kind of take a pause and look at that, right? I mean, um, even for my family, like, we had in 2020, we had a lot of weddings canceled, postponed, whatever.
Oh gosh,
Um,
yeah.
but we used that opportunity to take our camper out and do like a ton of camping that year. We went to campgrounds all over. Gas was cheap. Um, we probably went camping more that year than any other year. And so like there was a lot of bad things about that year, but there was also a lot of good things that I
Yeah.
look back on, because it gave you that pause, that moment to like be like, I'm spending time with my family. I'm doing the things that are important to me in life. And so I still look back on that with like a lot of great memories.
Oh yeah.
And
I
then
I
it got
always refer to
crazier, busier afterwards again. But yeah,
I refer to that year as like a year of rebirth. I'm like, people really suffered a lot that year, but also like really discovered themselves in a different light. So I'm grateful for that year as much as I am. Let's not do that again.
yeah, right. I know, for real. So you actually started your business then after, right? You said 2022.
Yeah.
Okay.
We, so I got pregnant with our daughter all of the end of 2020, had a pandemic baby. There were a lot of them.
Yep.
um, had her in 21, and it was 2020 was a crazy time. We were just saying that. I adopted my brother and sister that year, and Panda and I were navigating our relate because he was still in Arlington dealing with this huge, his company is an event space for like these giant esports tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's an event venue and it's a
Okay.
pandemic. So
Right.
you can see where that was probably going because they couldn't do these tournaments in a pandemic. So he was navigating what's going to happen to the stadium, and also just wanting to, he's from here, from Arkansas, so he was wanting to make his way back here. So honestly, we felt like the universe was just putting things into motion to get him back home, and that's kind of what happened. And yeah, 21 was us just trying to get our ducks in a row, and he was still working in esports, but then he was working from home like everybody else, and I was still working at the university, but I was working from home like everyone else.
Yeah.
And by the end of the year, though, we were just feeling so burnt out, and he was like, I can't keep doing these Zoom calls from early in the morning till late at night. And he was like, why I got into esports is he's like, I just wanted to feel like I was making a difference and bring community together. And he's like, now it just feels all business. And
Hmm.
for me, I was just like, I was I loved my job, but I was just so scared to go back to work, especially after this pandemic. And also I wanted to be close to this new baby. Um, and I was like, I feel like I'm going to miss so much. So that's
Hmm.
when this idea was born. We could go full time with this.
Yeah.
Um, we could work from home and you wouldn't have to worry about being at the university. And yeah. And so we just dove in. And, it's funny though, because I was never, any bride that's listening to this, I love shooting weddings now. But at the time, I was not passionate about weddings at all. I didn't have like a lot of heart in them. Um, they stressed me out. Working alone was really hard for me, but it's what I preferred because I'm like really stubborn. And so I was like, weddings are not for me. I was like, I'm really passionate about families because I feel like that's what matters.
Hmm.
But I feel like I've evolved a lot since then. So now weddings do matter. I see I view them a lot differently than I used to, especially as someone that's like married and I have a family now, like I view weddings so much differently than I did as like a young 20-year-old shooting weddings.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, so I was very, very hesitant to start shooting a lot of weddings because I kept telling him, I was like, no, I really like family stuff. I was like, I really just want to stick to that. I was like, I feel like that's where my heart is. And he's like, I think you're going to find a way to be able to do both. And yeah, here we are.
Yeah. That's cool. So you probably benefited somewhat then, like launching your business after that on like kind of the post-COVID boom of everybody trying to reschedule, or people that had waited and delayed. Like the
Oh,
last,
yeah.
I mean, I do wedding photography and videography as well, and with my team, and I mean, the last 2 to 3 years have been just nonstop, like
Oh,
so many
yeah.
weddings. So
So many.
I feel like that was a
Yeah.
good time.
A lot of our first weddings were people that were like, well, we had, a wedding planned in 2020 and that fell through. So here we are. And I mean, I even shot during the pandemic. Like, I shot a couple elopements and where everyone was masked, and I shot a micro wedding at someone's home. And I remember
Hmm.
panicking because I got there and nobody was wearing a mask. And I was like texting my family. I was like, I'm going to have to quarantine after this. um, so, yeah, a lot of our first weddings were the people that were finally getting to have their wedding.
Yeah, yeah, that's crazy. So I know, I want to kind of talk about like your style, like kind of what inspires that, because you said, you feel like you mentioned about having a more like a photo documentary kind of approach, and liking the family aspect. Like, do you feel like, what do you feel that style is, and do you feel like you're able to like bring that into weddings in a different way than what is seen in the industry normally? Because I feel like, I mean, when I look at your work, I feel like it's very different from what we see. We look at like so many photos. Like,
Yeah.
if you ever want to be humbled about your work, like run a magazine and start seeing
Oh,
everybody's stuff coming in, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm like a tiny pea in a big pond here. But there is also like a lot of repetition. There's a lot of stuff that looks exactly the same, and some of it is trends, some of it is just, we went through the film renaissance, and everybody became a fine art photographer after that, and we went through this very like hyper curated, everything in place, editorial, models not smiling kind of phase of wedding photography. And I feel like it's shifted now, and it has shifted after COVID, like you said. And I do feel it's this thing of people just looking at it and they're like, that looks too perfect, and that's not how life is. Like, life is messy, life has some bumps in the road, and I resonate with this more because it feels like me. I mean, even kids nowadays, like, high schoolers, they're going out and they're buying old crappy old crappy cameras with point and shoot video from like back in the day, and that's what they're putting on their Instagram, and it looks like crap,
mhm.
but they love it. And I think it's because in that imperfection they're finding something. So I'd love to hear like kind of what your philosophy is, and what you see in
Yeah.
in that.
Honestly, I kind of feel lucky because since I've ever shot weddings, that's kind of the way I always shot. Um, I never really followed. I'm sure I followed a lot of trends, as
Hmm.
has everyone. But I always had this style where, so before we were Nouvel, I had Sarena K Photography. It's my name. Um, and my style was very, you know, photojournalistic, and the colors were punchy, and I'm not even embarrassed by my old work. I wouldn't deliver my old work now, but I look back on it and I was like, it's clean, and I was getting all the in between moments, and I would really try to sell that to people. But not as many people were interested in that as they are now. So
Mm-hmm.
now it's like, I don't know. For a long time, I was like, I really feel like this is great. And, people just really don't want that right now. And now that they do, I'm like, I can give that to you. um, so I don't, I don't know, maybe 10 years from now, they're going to want something completely different and I'm still going to be stuck doing this style. But, um, yeah, growing up, I would sit in my grandma's closet and I would beg to be able to do this. And she had this giant box of thousands and thousands of photos. And that box is long gone. And it makes me really sad when I think about it. And I think about it a lot.
Oh man.
But I would just sit and I would look at those photos. And my grandma had a little AE1 program, like everybody. And I still have it. It's like on a shelf right above the computer. Um, and she photographed me on that camera every week. So I was very familiar with cameras, and I had no idea that you could make taking pictures a job back then. I just thought having a camera and having film was like a way of life.
Yeah.
Um, and then I got older, and I remember the man that did my senior photos, my senior year of high school. I mean, he probably hated my guts, because I was like, I know my way around a camera and I know what I want to do for my pictures, and I'm going to be a photographer. And he he was probably like, this girl. But I hated all of his ideas, and I had a lot of ideas, and I was like, I just want it to look like I'm having fun.
Mm-hmm.
um, and yeah, from there, seeing my grandma take pictures of like all the kids, like I had so many cousins and we grew up on 10 acres. Seeing my grandma like photograph all of us just growing up and then being able to sit and go through those pictures. I wanted to be able to do that. And I was like, what if you photographed families in a way where it was like, you know, a day in their life versus a family standing in a field. And there are a lot of like photographers that do that. And like, I just really like Yan Palmer, um, Diana Martin, those photographers. I look at their work and I'm like, yes, this is like what just makes my heart soar because it reminds me of what my grandma did. But my grandma
Mm-hmm.
never considered herself a photographer. It was just a way of life.
Yeah.
But just so you know, I did run into the photographer that did my senior photos years later, and he asked me. He recognized me, probably because he took my pictures, and he was like, "Did you become a photographer?" And I was like, "Yes, I am so sorry."
That's funny.
But he was like, "Are you doing your thing? You got your style?" And I was like, "I think so." I was like, "I think I owe you an apology."
That's funny. Yeah, and I mean, I think that that's like definitely different styles resonate with some people, and I don't mean to like diss kind of the what happened after the resurgence of film, because I think there's a place for that as well. I just think that people's people's impression, people, the way people view things and like what they feel from it changes based on their surroundings, and I think that's what's happened is that people have looked at some of that and they're just like, oh, it's so pretty and it's so perfect looking, and it doesn't feel like me, it doesn't feel like my life, maybe, like I think that was maybe more what changed. I still think there's a place for pretty pictures. I still think there's a place for posed editorials. Um,
Yeah.
but
I mean, for the longest
I just
time, I
think that the
wished,
way.
sorry,
No, you're
for the
good.
longest time, I wished that I could even, I mean, there was a big, I mean, every photographer goes through this, ebbs and flows of comparing themselves to
For
other
sure. Yeah.
artists or feeling like they're, faking it till they're making it. And, or what's it called? Imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've had my fair share of that in the past. And I remember seeing all of this fine artwork and I was just like, how do they do that? Like, it's so pretty. Like, why don't I do that? And I would just stick to this style of mine. And I was like, maybe this isn't actually what's good. Maybe that's what's good. But it took me a long time to realize that they can both be good.
Yep.
There are
Yep.
different styles of work. There are different styles of painting. So why can't there be different styles of photography?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you're happy creating what you're creating and it's resonating with you and it makes you feel fulfilled, I think that's what's important.
Yeah.
Um, and obviously, I mean, you want to have some clients that resonate with it too, because you want to make some money doing it. But um, if you're doing something that only you like, but the rest of the world doesn't like, I guess maybe that's a problem. But
Yeah.
yeah, um, yeah, that's so fun. Um, let's talk about this for a little bit.
Okay.
The
Those are
cover
really
image.
sweet girls.
So I think this was one of the. I think I saw this shoot, right? I think you posted it in like
The tap
a
group,
Facebook
the
group, a tap
archetype.
group. Yep. And I think I saw it and I was like, dang, that's so cool. And I'm always like, and I'm often finding things like that for the magazine. Like I'll see things that people post somewhere and I'll kind of write them about it and be like, I feel like this would be such a great fit for, um, for something that we have as a theme in the magazine. So I know you had that one and then this other family one, I believe, right? Going through here.
The little baby boy
Yeah.
and that's the
Okay,
Caples
here's these guys.
family.
Yep, this is the ones with the greenhouse. And then I'm flicking through here. Yeah, this one here, right?
Yes.
Those guys, yeah.
That's a really special family. That the mom of that family ended up buying. I sold all my gear and I switched to. I did this like 3 times, but I sold all my gear and I switched to Sony. And when I did, so I was selling like all my Canon stuff. She ended up buying it and starting
Uh-huh.
her own business. And I was like, "This is the gear I did your family session on." Or some of it anyway, because I used a lot of cameras, but
Yeah.
so it was really special to her because that was like her start was with the very gear that photographed her own family.
Mm-hmm. What?
Those shoots are really special. That first one, I didn't make a penny off of it because I had this like vision, and I've told you I've done photography forever. Like, I had a camera with me in high school and I was always like, yeah, I take pictures. I was the kid at parties that always had the camera.
Mm-hmm.
If you go backwards in like my Facebook photos, I'm sure like all of the first photos I ever posted on Facebook back in 05, 06 were house party photos, embarrassing stuff. But forever, I've always just really, really been drawn to photographing families. I'm I have 7 siblings. I grew up with a ton of cousins. I was always around people. But when I was a kid, the only pictures that existed of me were the ones my grandma took. But my family never did like family photos. And I always felt a little sad about it because I was like really drawn to family and pictures. So over the years, I was like taking photos of all these families, but I never quite felt like I don't know, there was just something missing. And then in fall 2022, I won a ticket to go to the indie film workshop. And I got to spend a week with all these film photographers. And by the way, I was the only person there that brought, or maybe one of the only people. There were probably a couple more, but I also brought the GFX, which is not a film camera. And
Mm-hmm.
everyone was like, "Why do you have this at this film workshop?" And I was like, "I'm testing it out." But while I was there, I got to meet Dustin with Tap, and I learned so much that week. But I think what I got from that workshop more than anything was like, there's nothing stopping you from taking these pictures that you feel like you're not capable of taking. I had this vision of the way I want to do family sessions, and I never really went after it because I always played it safe. And I feel
Mm.
like there are probably a lot of photographers for many years that play it safe because it's like, well, this is what people probably want. And I was always just too scared to be like, let's be crazy. Like, let's jump off the bed. Let's, not do everything so cookie cutter. Let's make this different. So I had this idea of what I wanted a family session to be like, and I would never really quite do it because I was playing it safe. But when I was at that workshop, Yan Palmer was there, and I got to see her work, and I was like, that's what I envision. And then I remember like the day after I saw her work, we did like like a styled shoot, and it was a family, and I was interacting with the family, and then Yan came up to me and she was like, "You're really good with kids." And I remember sitting like at lunch with her later that day, or maybe the next day, I don't know. Um, and I was talking to her about, I was like, I've always wanted to do these shoots this certain way, and I've always just been too scared to take risk. And while I was talking to her, I started bawling. And I was like, I don't know why I'm crying. And she was like, people cry when they talk to me. um, and I was like, I think you just unlock something in people, or maybe you like instill confidence in people with like how transparent you are about your life and like your methods.
Mhm.
But yeah, I left that workshop feeling really confident, and I was like, I kind of want to do something. So the place that we shot at was this girl I'd met. She had a like an Airbnb. And I was like, there's so much like natural light. So I reached out to her and I was like, would you mind if I did like a family session there? And then I reached out to a friend of mine who was, she was her daughters are the ones on the cover. And
Mhm.
she really deserved to have a family session. And she had, 3 young kids, and I think she really needed it. And her family is beautiful. So I was like, I just have an idea. I was like, I kind of want to approach this session differently. And my husband, Pando, he was like, I want to come and do some video. And I was like, no, no. I was like, I think I need to be in the right headspace for this. I
Mm.
was like, I just want to see if I can bring these images that are in my head to life, which is really very unplanned. I feel like I'm kind of being vague, but when we got there, I was like, here are the rules. There are no rules. Um, I was like, I guess my biggest rule is just try to have a good time. And if you see like some light, go towards it. And so we ran all over this property, just playing in the light, and like the kids were having fun. And um, yeah, it was, and like the toddler, he was like really upset, but it didn't bother me that he was upset, like, and he wanted his mom, because I was like, I feel like that's just a part of life and motherhood.
Yeah.
um, so it was kind of perfect, even though it was very chaotic. And I went home feeling like I'd finally taken photos in the way that I had always like felt about them. And all it took was just like some confidence to like not be so cookie cutter and to just capture the things that I thought looked fun, you know.
Yeah. And are you giving them prompts like in like a picture like that with the little girl with her arm out? Like did
No,
you no, it's
that was,
just her having fun.
yeah, that was just the kids feeling comfortable. And you know, not every kid is going to feel so free spirited at a session. I've
Right.
had sessions where the kids like hide behind a parent. But I tell every family, let's shoot for at least 2 hours. You know, I don't want to, obviously, I don't want to be there all day unless they booked me all day. But I will say, let's shoot for at least 2 hours, and so that the kids can get comfortable, and I'll just kind of hang out with them. And
There's a fire truck going by.
that's okay. My daughter would love it.
It's not a
Is that a fire
sound
truck?
not a completely soundproof room here.
um, but yeah, having grown up with a bunch of siblings, and most of them are younger than me, and also I've got kids, and I've taught pre-K before. I like to think I'm pretty good with kids, so and I can pick up on when they're not comfortable or they're shy. So
Yeah.
I'm not. I've had sessions where parents they'll push their kids to like smile, smile, smile. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
just leave them be. Let them do whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
And once a kid feels comfortable, you're good.
Yeah.
I might say, what would be really fun is if we run in circles. Let's just run in circles. Let's be crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Or, I might say, why don't you, you know, I'll judge how great the relationship is between like the kids and dad. Like, are they tickly kind of people? And I might say like, why don't you run over there and attack dad? Like, go get dad. And I think it's just reading people and letting them be themselves. But I don't
Yeah.
think I have a formula for any, across the board. I'll say, just read the people, see how they're doing, and then let them kind of be themselves. If you go to a session and you've got like a really quiet kid, maybe they like books or something. And see what they're into and feed into that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I've had a couple well, I've had a lot of repeat families over the years that come back for photography in my business too, and that aspect also like kind of builds trust with the kids when they get to know you on that way, and then it's like it's more fun for them because they know they're going to come back and they're going to see me and we're going to have a good time. Um, but it's the same, like they're so varied. I feel like kids are just, some will be very still and other ones are a little bit on the spectrum and they're all over the place, and there's a wide variety of children that you can encounter. So um, being flexible with them, I think, is definitely, because you don't want everything to turn into a meltdown session. You want them to have
Yeah.
fun. So because once they start crying and they're mad, then it's all over.
Well, it was the session with the little girls on the cover. They're, it's not my story to tell, but their baby brother is on the spectrum, and a big part of his personality is just he needs mom, and he gets really upset without mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I just know that as a mom myself, that having like a baby that needs you 100% of the time, and then you've got other kids, it's really overwhelming, and you get I would get touched out. And so I tried to, during that session, baby wanted mom. The little girls were being wild and free and having fun. And I would tell mom, and, their mom, she's like, I wouldn't say she puts it on her resume, but she's modeled a lot. She's one of the most beautiful people I've ever met in my life, but I barely took 2 photos of her. I only took a couple photos of her because I told her, I was like, I just want you to like relax through this and don't worry about being on camera. And, if the baby needs you, then you guys can go like walk away and have some space, and I'll just have fun with the girls.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, so that session, it, she was telling me like, this is my first time getting all the kids out together in a little bit, because what her baby was going through at the time probably was overwhelming. And, or it would be to me. I don't know
Yeah.
I can't speak for her, but, yeah, it plays into read the room, read people's emotions. Maybe you think it's cute when like a whole family is sitting on the grass together and everyone's laughing, but I could tell that definitely was not going to happen at that session. We were not going to have a big group photo where everyone was laughing. So I was like, it would be cute as if we could all be in the same room. So there's this shot where like mom's sitting on the bed and the baby was like, he's not a baby. I think he was probably 2 or 3 at the time, but
Yeah,
he
like a little
was
toddler.
running around the house. So I was letting him have his zoomies. And I told the girls, I was like, you guys are older and behaved. You girls are great. And I know that you're going to do great and you're going to work with me. So I want you two to go play with those curtains because they're really pretty and the light's so pretty over there. And I'll wait until the baby runs back into the room. And so I just sat there like a National Geographic photographer waiting for the bird to swoop in. So, I let the baby do his thing. And as soon as he came into the room, I was just like, snap, 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 snap. Then he would leave and I'd wait again. So, yeah, it was just letting them be them. But I don't think there was ever a moment where I was like, I'm going to put you here and put you here. But yeah, that curtain shot, I do remember the sisters were, they were like playfully fussing at each other behind the curtains. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, what if y'all squish up really close together? And they thought
Yeah.
it was funny. And yeah, those shots were so pretty. But that was them because they were having a good time.
Yeah. It's so cute, and it's fun hearing the story of that because the other picture from that session, which did end up in here, for a long time we had a few like working magazine images that kind of went around our team, and when I was thinking about the issue and I was thinking that I wanted to be about just real life moments, kind of finding beauty in the messiness. I gotta find the thing here again. Keep losing where it's at in the book. I was like, I really wanted to like show something that feels, and this picture of the mom like holding her little guy, the one in here,
Yeah.
that was on like my working copy of the magazine for a while as the cover. Like I was like, is that the cover? And I still like it, and I went, you know, for whatever reason, but I went with this one, which I still love this one.
Because
But
that one's sweet, but that shot of the mom and the little boy, that was the tone for a lot of that session. Was it, when I say chaotic, I just mean there was a lot of things happening, like baby wanted mom and the girls were having fun exploring, because we booked this entire house and there's
mhm,
like a little there's a second little house. It's like a cottage behind the house, and then there's a greenhouse, and there's like a koi fish pond and a hammock and this big yard to run in. So these 2 little girls, and they got to be out of school that day to do the pictures. Mom checked them out of school. And I love she showed up and she was like, I'm so sorry, but I forgot to pack an extra outfit for the girls. And like one of them had like a stain on her shirt. And I was like, I don't even care. I was like, they look great. I was like, as long as they're having fun, I was like, they don't even need to wear their shoes. So I had like the girls take off their shoes. And the girls were just having a blast running all over this property. And I mean, they were fast. I was like, I can't even keep up. And it started to get really overwhelming for the little boy. And so I'm not using their names because I don't know like how comfortable their mom would
Yeah,
be.
yeah,
But
for sure.
the little boy, he he always wanted mom, and you could tell like, any mom, when your baby is crying for a long time, it's overwhelming because you want them to
Mm-hmm.
feel better. Um,
Yep.
so that was happening, and the girls are running around. But I felt like even capturing him wanting his mom was important. Um, so there were a lot of really heavy emotions in that photo. Like he
Mm-hmm.
was crying to her, and she's feeling overwhelmed because he's been crying for a while, and sisters were running around just being goofy. And so there was a lot happening, but it felt more real life than any session I had ever done. And mom was like apologizing. She's like, I'm sorry that this is chaotic. And I was like, I think I probably just took the best pictures I've ever taken in my life.
Mm.
I was like, these are beautiful. I was like, your life is beautiful. I was like, I know that it's really hard, motherhood is hard. I was like, but I think it's just so beautiful. And yeah, that's what came of it. So when I've had people say like, what do you do with families to get them to be, I'm like, I don't. I just kind of let them be. And I give them a space to do whatever they want. And if it feels like awkward and slow moving at first, I'll put on some like music for the kids, and I might give them a prompt like, mom and dad, why don't y'all sit together, and the kids are just going to run around you.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just kind of go from there.
Yeah, that's cool. I love hearing that story because I'm going back to like what I wrote on the intro as you were talking about that, about the chaos of it, and in my intro I said I knew I wanted to do something different with this issue. I wanted to shift focus away and tell a story about life in the moments in between, visuals from the beautiful messiness of everyday life with the scenes that you don't normally see, a pictorial collage showing that life can be beautiful in all seasons and that there's something amazing to be found during each one. And that's like, and as a dad myself, and like I know how it is life with kids, and I think that that's kind of something that's happened, as the magazine has grown, and something that we wanted to focus on too is like you mature in a lot of these areas. Like I feel like when you're not a parent yet and you're kind of just newlyweds, it might stress you out more to be around that scene that you just described.
Oh yeah.
But then when you've lived through it, when you've had that moment in your life where you've experienced this too, and you know what that parent is feeling and going through, you have the maturity to be like, this is okay. And we're still going to work with this, and you're not as stressed out. And we have 3 kids now, and it was going from 2 to 3 was messier than going from 1 to 2. It's been a lot more chaos. It's been a lot more toys everywhere. It's a lot more emotions with the kids. But we've talked with other parents who said, I don't know that it's that the more kids you have, the the less chaotic it is, or the easier it is. You just are more mature in how you manage the chaos,
Oh yeah.
and how much you let it stress you or not. And I think that's good, especially when you're dealing with families like that. And even with weddings, honestly, I mean, there's like a maturity that comes with dealing with weddings, because weddings can be very stressful also, and they can be a lot of chaos there. And I think that that's the job of the photographer, of the wedding planner, is to kind of be that calm in the storm for the couple, because it's going to be a little bit chaotic and overwhelming. And I think when you can bring that, like, everything's okay, peacefulness to it, that's it makes the couple's day better too.
Yeah, and I don't want to single anyone out and make them feel like, well, you have to be a mom and have to have dealt with a lot of kids or come from a big family to be able to step into that. I think a lot of people are just naturally really good at working with families and with kids, or just really good at directing.
Yeah.
But for me personally, having grown up with so many siblings, and like one of my siblings, he's Down syndrome, and his name is Hunter, and Hunter taught me a lot of patience growing up, because Hunter does what Hunter wants, and it doesn't matter where we're at. Hunter is the boss. So, yeah, I learned a lot from Hunter growing up, and just how to just work with people, and then shooting all of the families. And I would never say I was like extremely extroverted by any means. I was just kind of maybe a good mixture of both. But having shot so many weddings and families over the years, just on this side, kind of pushed me into having to know how to like work with people. So that experience also helps a lot. But then being a mom, and when I say we have a big blended family, it's pretty big. Like we have our daughter, I have my two siblings that I adopted, and then I have four stepkids, and Panda's other four, and two are twins. So, some days we have like 9 people sitting at our table, and it is chaotic in here. And I would love to have someone come document like when all of us are here together, because it's crazy. But I think a photographer could really have like a field day with us. So for me specifically, having to work with all of these children and having the experience that I do, like growing up, but also like professionally, I think gives me that advantage in feeling as comfortable as I do to like take those risks. But for the people that are really young that are able to just dive into this and take those risks right off the bat, I'm like, man, I wish I had what you have now when I was like 21. Because when I
Yeah.
was 21, I loved to take pictures, but I wasn't as much of a risk taker.
Hmm.
I was like, well, everyone likes field photos, so that's what I'm going to do. Let's
Yeah.
find a field.
Yeah. What do you have any tips or thoughts on that? Like you have a big family, balancing like your work, family, all of that together. I know that I
Um,
feel like this is something that everybody just kind of grows into.
oh yeah. There are days where it's really hard. It's never hard to have the business, and it's never hard to have the family, but there are days where it's hard to do both. When we have all the kids together, um, say I have a deadline for a wedding and the boys really want to go ice skating, and my sister really wants the family to go out on a bike ride, and you want to be able to please everyone, and you also want to be able to get one-on-one time with every child, and you want to be able to give them these like very simple things that they're asking for, like a bike ride.
Yeah.
It's as easy as getting on a bike and going out, and it's hard to say no to. But when you have like a wedding in front of you, it's like, oh, should I work on the wedding? Should I go on the bike ride? And then Olive needs to go down for a nap. So I've gotten to where I plan like editing times, and you know on my calendar, I may see, oh, well, Saturday is wide open. I could spend all Saturday editing. I could spend all Saturday, you know, I don't know, educating myself on something, something related to the business. But now instead of doing that, I'll look at the calendar and I'm like, well, all the kids are going to be here on Saturday. So that is a no work day. And I'll
Mm.
tell myself, like, I'll close my laptop and I hide it under the couch, and it stays there the whole weekend. And I do not tend to the business at all when it is their time. So
Mm.
I think it's, dedicate time to the people that matter. It's easier said than done. Um, because when you're like, well, I've got 3 whole hours and the kids are like playing video games, I could be editing. And I'm like, no, I promised myself no editing today. So
Mm,
let's do that bike ride or, you know, just be present.
yeah,
So,
it's hard to turn that off. I think as a when you're that close to your business, like I think when you work for somebody else, it's easy to disconnect at the end of the day, or
oh,
whenever
yeah.
your work shift is done. But when it's like your passion project, like you're invested personally in it, and it means more to you, then it's hard to turn it off. It's hard to have those moments where you're like, I can't look at it, I can't do anything with it. I need to focus on something else. But
You
and
have to
then
like make rules, like set boundaries for yourself. Like, there have been nights because we run the business together and Panda is a very big, his wheels never stop spinning. And I think that's why he's successful with literally everything he does. Um, I can go a week without thinking about it or trying not to think about it. I'm like, I got to put it to the side for a little bit so I can feel refreshed. But he's like a train. But there have been nights where it's like 1 a.m. and he'll be like, what do you think about this lens kit? And I'm like, did you just ask me about cameras at 1 a.m? And he's like, no, no way. Um, so yeah, just set boundaries for yourself. But also, you there's no rule that you have to have like work hours. If you work better late at night, then work then. Just make time for the people that matter. Make time for yourself too.
yeah,
And that's also easier said than done, but just do it.
yeah,
Make it happen.
I hear you. um, let's see here. Oh, yeah, let's talk anything else. I know you talked about like kind of what your work was before and your husband's work. What are your other, like when you're not doing photos and videos and stuff, what do you like to do for fun? What's your other passions, your other hobbies? What
Um,
do you like to do with the kids?
I Well, I play guitar and I sing. And you can't see it. There's a piano behind me. I recently obtained a really nice piano and got a great deal on it. And I was like, I'm going to learn the piano. Um, we'll see. I really love music, and so does my husband. He's been in a band. I've been in a band. And now my stepson, his name is Cloud. Cloud's taken an interest to guitar, so I let him take home my amp and my electric guitar. And I'm like, I'm going to let you keep this for 1 year, but you have to play it every day. And he's in lessons, so it's really cool to see the kids kind of blossom. Um, but yeah, I've all the arts and crafty things. I also like woodwork. Before we bought this house, I was one of those people on the internet where I was like, one day I'm going to have a show on HGTV. Because I flipped a house by hand,
Mm.
and I loved it. And but I did it over the course of like 6 years.
Oh wow.
So I love being able to like build things and redo the house. But it's, since starting Nouvel and having this big blended family,
It's
I
hard
don't
to
really do
find
that
time to do
anymore.
that stuff. I know.
No, but I'll like walk into the kitchen and I've had this idea. I want to like rebuild the island that's in our kitchen. And I'm like, I'm going to do that. And so I'm like constantly building out a blueprint for how I'm going to build it, but we'll see. We'll see
Hmm.
if I actually get there.
Yeah,
um,
yeah, that's fun.
but yeah, I would say I'm like a hands-on person.
That's cool. I took piano lessons for, gosh, I don't know. This is kind of a funny little interjection too. Um, maybe 4 years, a pretty long time, from a very classically trained, um, like I think her husband definitely like taught at Juilliard at one point. She may
Oh,
have as
wow.
well, and she was just a little old lady in our town. She had a stroke, and she couldn't use her right hand. That was what it was, because I remember she would always play everything with the left hand. So she would play like the top and bottom together with the left hand when she would show me how to do something. And
I think that's pretty amazing that she
I
was
know,
like, I'm still going to do it.
yeah, yeah. Her name was Mrs. Light, and I came across a picture of her in like a Facebook group that I admin for the town where I grew up in Pennsylvania. And somebody the other day just posted a picture from like way back of like her with her husband and somebody else, and it was like for their piano shop, and I was like, ah, that's cool. And then my daughter looked at it and she was like, was that when she taught you? And this picture was like, it was like yellowed, like it was, and I'm like, how old do you think I am? It was like black and white yellowed, and I was like, no, Daddy was not born yet at that point. But
I was not a child in the 60s. Thank you very much.
yeah, yeah, but that was fun. That was I learned a lot about music that way. And my daughter wants to learn to play piano because we have a piano in our house too. In fact, it's the same piano that it actually was my great grandmother's piano that I moved with me when
Oh,
I
I
moved
like
here
that.
from Pennsylvania to North Carolina. And so we have that same piano, been passed down through generations, and she wants to learn. And but I'm in this mix. Like I know that a lot of teaching now is like more on like, and it was kind of starting even when I was doing lessons where people were learning more on like less on music theory and more on playing by sound. And so
Yeah.
I'm in this torn space right now where I'm like, do I want her to learn the way I learned, or do I want her to learn a different way? So
Um, I feel that.
yeah.
My little brother, when I first got custody of him, I bought him a trumpet. So he's like in the school band, but obviously they learned a lot about music theory.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes home and he's like, "You're a music person. Like, let's talk about it together." And honestly, I sang growing up my whole life, but what he knows about music is not what I know about music. So he is speaking a foreign language to me. So I think it's good to have a little bit of both.
Yeah, yeah. I know. It's interesting. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But yeah. Well, it's cool. This has been fun. I'm glad that we had this chance to chat and hear more about the stories behind your stuff. Where do you see everything being in like the next 5 years or so with you? With you?
Hopefully, I would like to get to a place where I do more family stuff than weddings. But I do really like working weddings together with my husband. I think the process and the way we work with couples is really like intimate. I use that word. Oh my gosh, that's my cat. He's jumping and hitting
The
the blinds
blinds.
pole. Yeah, he's pretty young, so he's crazy. Yeah, I would still like to be doing the same. I When I think about photography, I think it's so deeply embedded into like who I am. So I don't think that I'll ever really put a camera down. But obviously, we're only getting older, so I think about that a lot. I'm like, well, I don't think I'm going to be shooting weddings when I'm like 55, but I would like to just be, I don't know, documenting the mountains from our RV or something when I'm that age.
Right.
Um,
I think about that a lot as well.
so hopefully when I'm much older, like hopefully we do well enough to where we can retire and then my pictures are just purely, that's the cat, purely out of hobby. He is going crazy. I was going to grab him. Yeah, 5 years, hopefully a bit of the same, but maybe more family and less wedding. Because when I shoot families, it doesn't really feel like work. Not that weddings do, but obviously weddings do. It's a long day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it takes a lot of, I think any wedding photographer knows this. It's also mentally draining by the end of it because you're wanting every photo you take to count and you don't want to miss anything. And so you're just thinking all day. You're like, um, you've got to think about your camera settings on top of, is this a good moment? Is this, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Takes a
Yep.
lot of brain power,
Yep. Yep.
but I feel like shooting families for me, I use less mental energy because I just feel like I'm in my happy place.
Mm-hmm.
And weddings feel like a mission, like I'm on a mission to make this the best experience for like the bride and the groom. Like I want them to have the best day ever.
Yeah.
And I want them to walk away with like photos they can cherish. So I think I do approach them similarly, but also different because they're two very different things.
Well, there's a lot more stressor points in a wedding too. There's a lot more like this is going to happen right now, and it's only going to happen one time, kind of thing. Like
Yeah.
there's those moments. Whereas like in shooting a lot of other things in life, it's like, oh, I missed that. Oh, we can redo it, or we can,
Well,
whatever. Like,
I tell every couple, I'm like, before the wedding, like we get together, we have like this vision strategy call where I give them like a timeline. And I'm like, when you're planning your wedding, it feels like you have like a box of puzzle pieces. All the pieces are there, but it would be nice to be able to see this puzzle. So I'll give them a timeline for their day. And I'm like, while my style is very photojournalistic, like if I see a kid licking a window, I'm going to take a picture of it. I was like, but there still needs to be structure for you so that your day is not stressful and kind of all over the place.
mm-hmm.
You want to follow kind of a guideline and yeah, so there's structure, but it's because there is so much structure, it is it's hard to, my brain is like failing me right now. um it's just different. It's different
Yeah.
than a family session where people can just run around,
Yeah.
because it's like, well, now it's time to go do the first look, so I'm gonna
Yeah.
leave the kids to look in the windows and I'm gonna go over here.
That's great. Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing where all that takes you and seeing more of your wedding work as well come through. And yeah, wish you all the best
Thank
with all
you.
of it. It's been fun to learn about it all and hear the story behind it. And I hope everybody else enjoys hearing it too and getting to know you better. Do you want to give a little shout out to your website where people can, or your socials where people can find more of your work too?
Yeah, I'd love that. On Instagram, we're Nouvel Photo Film. That's Nouvel Photo Film. And our website is nouvel.co. Yeah, that's where you can find us. And, you don't have to follow us, but if you do, it's really appreciated.
Cool. Yeah, we'll link it up in the show notes for the podcast too. But awesome. Well, I think I'll wrap it up there. And yeah, it was great. Thanks for taking the time to come on and chat. It's been fun.
Yeah, I loved it. And I'm really excited to hear the interviews that you do with everyone else because I just love seeing what their process is.
Yeah, it's going to be fun for sure. So I will wrap it up there, and I hope you have a good day. And thanks again.
Thank you. It was so great chatting with you, Brent.
There's a place called home, a place called home.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Nested. You can keep up on all things White Wren on our website at whitewren.com or follow us on social media at The White Wren. Tune in again next time and have a wonderful day.
Oh, I've walked for miles and I've traded my time for adventure.